Coming up on The World Today. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden wins victory in Georgia and has been confirmed by a recount. Pfizer and its partner BioNTech will apply on Friday for emergency authorization in the U.S. for their COVID-19 vaccine. The United Nations calls for an immediate temporary ceasefire in Ethiopia's Tigray region. Hello to our viewers around the world and here in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Akaite Afia. A vote recount in Georgia has confirmed U.S. President-elect Joe Biden's victory in the state. This comes as legal efforts by President Donald Trump's allies to challenge his defeat were dismissed in 3 states. The Democrat beat his Republican rival in Georgia by 12,284 votes, according to the audit required by state law. Mr. Biden says he is confident that Mr. Trump knew he was not going to win and has shown incredible irresponsibility.
Incredible irresponsibility. I think they're witnessing incredible irresponsibility. Incredibly damaging messages being sent to the rest of the world about how democracy functions. And I think it is, well, I don't know his motive, but I just think it's totally irresponsible. No, I'm not concerned the vast majority of the American people. They've already, all the polling data has indicated, although the Republicans who worry about it is higher, but over 78% of the American people believe it's, without question, it's legitimate. I just think it's, and I think most of the Republicans I've spoken to, including some of the governors, think this is debilitating. It's not it sends a horrible message about who we are as a country.
We'll get more on that story in just a moment. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence says that Pfizer and BioNTech will be filing for emergency authorization of their COVID-19 vaccines on Friday. Mr. Pence also says the Trump administration does not support another lockdown or school closures to stem the spread of the deadly coronavirus. 41 U.S. states have reported a daily record increase in COVID-19 cases in November. 20 have registered new all-time highs in coronavirus-related deaths from day to day, and 26 reported new peaks in hospitalizations.
And the news that one of those research companies is going to submit an emergency use authorization tomorrow on the very first vaccine, that we are literally, we could well be just a matter of a few short weeks away from a vaccine being available.
And I hear a lot now when we made these announcements this past Monday and then 2 Mondays ago about some reticence of people. Well, did you rush this? Was this too fast? Is it really safe? And is it really efficacious? The process of the speed did not compromise at all safety, nor did it compromise scientific integrity. It was a reflection of the extraordinary scientific advances in these types of vaccines, which allowed us to do things in months that actually took years before. So I really want to settle that concern that people have about that.
Meanwhile, the World Health Organization says that Gileads Remdesivir is not recommended for patients hospitalized with COVID-19, regardless of how ill they are, as there is no evidence the drug improves survival or reduces the need for ventilation. The advice is another setback for the drug, which grabs worldwide attention as a potentially effective treatment for COVID-19 in the summer after early trials showed some promise. At the end of October, Gilead cut its 2020 revenue forecast, citing lower than expected demand and difficulty in predicting sales of Remdesivir, which is also known as Velclary.
So you can see that this is the confidence interval is a little bit large, either reducing mortality or increasing mortality. And so that was the evidence at the end, the big summary evidence that the panel had. And with that wrote a conditional recommendation against the use. This did not prove that Remdesivir does not have a benefit at all. And that's why it's a conditional recommendation. There can still be potential small benefit. maybe in a subgroup, which is why the panel also recommended continued trials, continued enrollment into clinical trials, which is why Solidarity also continues to enroll into Remdesivir, and to focus perhaps better on the subgroups. Is there a subgroup that may benefit more, such as severe patients versus critical patients? Is there a timing in disease that may benefit more, such as early versus late? And those are all considerations that are in the guideline.
Over to Serbia, where President Aleksandar Vučić says that the head of the country's Orthodox Church, Patriarch Irinej, has died after contracting the coronavirus. The 90-year-old, a conservative who wielded major political influence, was diagnosed with the virus on November 4th and had been in a military hospital in the capital, Belgrade, since then. He tested positive after attending the November 1st funeral of the most senior cleric of the Serbian Orthodox Church in Montenegro, who also died from COVID-19. Irinej became the 45th patriarch of the Serbian Orthodox Church in 2010. The church has around 12 million followers, mainly in Serbia, Montenegro, and Bosnia, and dioceses in the United States, Australia, and Western Europe. Earlier, we did mention that President-elect Joe Biden has won the case in Georgia, and we want to get more on this from our Washington, D.C. correspondent, Maria Bird. Maria, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So, Maria, we understand that President Donald Trump's legal challenge in Georgia, Arizona, and Pennsylvania have suffered a setback. What other options are available to the president and his team at this time?
Well, this time he's really trying to gather support from legislators, those who are the Republican Party, and that's what he's looking at as a potential way to look at how to reverse the course. And so it's not clear exactly to how he plans and what his strategy will be, but that is the strategy he's going after at this time. As you stated before, many of those lawsuits are now suffering and not really showing or proving to be able to get him out of the circumstance and potentially prove that he could have been the winner at some point. So, and at this time, it's really going to be about how to slow the process. It has been speculated that he understands what is occurring, that he is at some level understanding that the did go to President-elect Biden, but at this time he is not necessarily going to have that concession speech that people have been waiting for, but he will be looking at some legislative ways to address the issue.
And Maria, how is the White House currently reacting to the outcome of the vote recount in Georgia?
Well, again, the White House is President Trump's administration, so they have been very loyal to him throughout his administration, throughout the 4 years. And so they are going to continue to support him. And so, yes, there were many during the beginning days, 2 weeks ago, they were trying to encourage him to come out and speak and supporting him while he was becoming aware and realizing what had actually occurred with President-elect Joe Biden winning the actual election. But at this time, they are just supporting him and following through with what he's requesting, which is that he wants to definitely, push the point that maybe he should still be the president come January 20th.
Well, speaking of support for Mr. Trump, his lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, has continued to lay out unsubstantiated conspiracy theories and accusations of electoral fraud. How are Americans reacting to his press conference on Thursday?
Americans are, they are watching, but you have to remember there are 71 million people that supported him. And so the Americans that we hear that are, very much in support, yes, that is a majority of Americans are support of President-elect Joe Biden. But there is a very large percentage of Americans that have said that they support the president. And so they are going to go to stand with him. And they believe that that there should still be further investigation in the proceedings and how the election was actually carried out in the United States. But as we've seen and heard time and time again, those who are electoral officials have said this is the most efficient, this is the most secure, this has been the most strategized and planned out election that America has seen in many years.
Well, some analysts are worried that Mr. Biden has shown no real interest in mounting an aggressive communication strategy to counter the lies that are being spread against him. Instead, he's focused solely on the coronavirus, and they feel this will make it more difficult for him to unite the country when he assumes office. What's your take on this, Maria?
You know, that's a very hard position. I mean, yes, a politician and analyst is going to feel that way, but you have to remember there are thousands of people every day contracting the coronavirus. I mean, this pandemic has not stopped in the United States, and there are people that are dying each and every day. And so when you talk about what's critical, I think from his vantage point, you know, what's critical is the lives of Americans. And you're right, he's going to have a hard time come January 20th with the division that exists in the U.S. But are you going to address the division, or are you going to address a major health crisis, an emergency that has not been stopped and that is escalating more and more moment by moment?
Well, Maria, thanks so much for joining us today. Do stay safe.
Thank you.
Moving away from the U.S., the police in Germany have arrested a man suspected of sexually motivated murder and cannibalism after a victim's bones were found in a park in northern Berlin. Forensic experts determined that the bones were the remains of a 44-year-old man who went missing 2 months ago. Reports say sniffer dogs led police to the suspect's Berlin apartment. He is reported to be a 41-year-old math teacher. Ugandan presidential candidate Bobi Wine has been released on bail after being charged with spreading coronavirus. The court ruled on Friday after the 38-year-old held a large rally this week. Human rights groups say the virus charge is a pretext to suppress political opposition ahead of the 14th of January election. Protests broke out and 37 people died in clashes when the politician, who's also a pop star, was arrested this week. The musician, whose real name is Robert Kyagulanyi, is among 11 candidates challenging President Yoweri Museveni, who has been in power since 1986. United Nations aid agencies are calling for an immediate temporary ceasefire in Ethiopia, following more than 2 weeks of fighting between the army and regional forces in Tigray. They have had no access to the conflict zone and want humanitarian corridors to be set up. The UN fears hundreds, possibly thousands of civilians have been killed. More than 30,000 refugees have arrived in Sudan, and many are hungry and frightened. Over half of them are children. Meanwhile, the Ethiopian government says it is bearing down on the capital of Tigray region in this 2-week-old conflict. Chief Executive of the Provisional Administration for Tigray National Regional State, Dr. Mulu Nega, says their task is very definite to plan new local elections to restore peace to the region once TPLF leaders were ousted.
We are not to stay there for 4 years. Our task is very definite to make the transition very smooth. In the first place, as I mentioned, our main task is to ensure transparent, objective, democratic, participatory, and trustful election in the region. Then after that, we'll hand over to the regional government elected by the people.
Humanitarian support reached to areas which are now being controlled by TPLF. Basically, we are planning to have 2 routes. One, in areas which are actually now unfettered, which are free, that those areas could be handled by the government, basically, and then with the support of other partners. In areas which are not free yet, or going to be free, then there has to be a safer corridor whereby UN agencies and other partners could supply humanitarian items like food and drugs.
Still to come on the program. Queen and Prince Philip mark their 73rd wedding anniversary with a new photo. Thanks for staying with us. The UN's Human Rights Agency has condemned the arrest of 3 members of a top rights group in Egypt. The UN agency says targeting activists is having a profound, chilling effect on an already weakened civil society. The head of the Egyptian Initiative for Personal Rights, Ghasir Abdel Razek, was detained on Thursday, days after 2 of his colleagues. They are being held for suspected links with a terror group. Dozens of activists have been arrested under President Abdul Fattah al-Sisi. But Egypt has repeatedly denied accusations of human rights violations. Mr. Sisi led the military's overthrow of his democratically elected predecessor, Mohamed Morsi, in 2013 following protests against his rule. The European Union and Britain are making better progress in talks on their future relationship, including in difficult areas such as the EU's demand for a level playing field guarantees. That's according to EU Chief Executive Ursula von der Leyen. Britain's transition out of the EU following Brexit ends on December 31st, and quotas of tariffs would hit bilateral trade from 2021, unless the estranged allies overcome their differences and seal a new partnership agreement that would also regulate ties from energy to transport to security. Speaking a day before a meeting of G20 leaders, von der Leyen says she will urge G20 leaders to maintain economic support measures until the recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic is firmly underway. European Council President Charles Michel also says countries should increase their collaboration to boost sustainable finance and follow the European Union's lead in developing green bond standards.
After difficult weeks with very, very slow progress, now we've seen in the last days better progress, more movement on important files. This is good. We still have, of course, the 3 main difficult issues: the governance, the fisheries, and the level playing field. But within the frame of the level playing field, progress, for example, has been made on the question of state aid. But there's still there are quite some meters to the finish line, so there's still a lot of work to do.
Malaysian Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin has told a virtual summit of Asia-Pacific leaders that the bloc's top priority should be to reaffirm its support and commitment for a rules-based multilateral trading system. The leaders of the 21-nation Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, joined by U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping, are expected to discuss the coronavirus crisis and global economic recovery amid lingering trade differences. Asia-Pacific leaders have called for more open and multilateral trade to support the economic recovery and warned against protectionism trade policies, with Xi saying unilateralism has added to global economic risk.
As we pursue regional solutions that help us to strike a delicate balance between our health priorities and economic needs, we are reminded not of our divergences, but our similarities, and of the fundamental fact that even in calamity, humanity will find a way. That said, we have to stand united in combating COVID-19. And it is therefore of utmost importance that people around the world have access to the vaccines and health technologies in an affordable, accessible, and equitable basis.
Thousands of residents in Russia's far eastern Primorsky region are without access to power after a state of emergency was introduced amid sub-zero cold after heavy snowfall. Authorities say the electricity supply may not return for several days, but a detailed recovery plan has been drawn up, agreed together with the regional authorities. A state of emergency was introduced in the Primorsky region on Thursday to mobilize all resources for the fight to protect people from the severe cold. Reports say 2 days of rain and snowfall have formed a coating of ice on wires and trees up to 12 millimeters thick, something not seen in the region for 30 years. The Navy and Army are involved in trying to limit the damage, and temporary accommodation facilities have been set up. New Delhi's air quality, which had improved to moderate category after a series of rain just earlier this week, has deteriorated once again to very poor. Now, this comes as traffic and buildings plunged back into film of thick smog. Minimum temperature in India's capital dipped to 12 degrees Celsius in the wee hours of Friday. Winds also remained mostly stagnant and failed to improve the air. Earlier in the week, air quality in the smog-bound capital showed marginal improvements following the rain on Sunday, a day after the Hindu festival of lights, Diwali. New Delhi ranks among the world's most polluted cities, with air quality usually worsening at this time of year, when smoke from firecrackers celebrating the Hindu festival of lights and crops burnt in nearby states envelops the city of more than 20 million people. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says that every country, city, financial institution, and company should adopt plans for transitioning to net zero emissions by 2050. In a recorded video message on climate action to European Council on Foreign Relations, Mr. Guterres notes that the European Union, Japan, and the Republic of Korea have pledged carbon neutrality by 2050, along with more than 110 other countries, and China will do so before 2060. He stated that by early 2021, countries representing more than 65% of global carbon dioxide emissions and more than 70% of the world's economy will have made ambitious commitments to carbon neutrality.
Every country, city, financial institution, and company should adopt plans for transitioning to net zero emissions by 2050. We need to see these plans well in advance of COP26, in particular the national determined contributions required under the Paris Agreement and the long-term strategies we need to become carbon neutral. The G20 countries, which are responsible for more than 80% of climate pollution, must show the way. The European Union has led on net zero emissions in the G20. I urge you to continue to lead with concrete and ambitious near-term commitments. It is essential that the European Union commits to reducing emissions by at least 55% by 2030 in its new nationally determined contributions.
And finally on the program, Queen Elizabeth and the second Duke of Edinburgh have marked their 73rd wedding anniversary by releasing a photo showing them opening a card from the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge's children. The homemade gift was created by Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis and is adorned with 73. The photograph was taken earlier this week in the Oak Room at Windsor Castle. The 94-year-old Queen was a 21-year-old princess when she married Lieutenant Philip Mountbatten on November 20th, 1947. Their enduring relationship has lasted the longest of any British sovereign. Well, that's all for the program today. Thank you so much for staying with us. I'm Akaite Afia. Have a great weekend and stay safe.